Across the nation, in industries as diverse as agriculture and construction, healthcare and hospitality, manufacturing and computer software, the story is the same. Too many open jobs and not enough workers. The problem is hurting retailers on Main Street and the nation's largest employers in our biggest cities. In a recent survey, 90% of local chambers of commerce reported it was difficult for businesses in their area to hire workers, with 2/3 reporting it was very difficult. Less than 1% said it was easy to fill open jobs. The government's official labor market statistics show all the signs of an incredibly tight labor market. Employers are asking their current employees to work longer hours. The number of people working part-time because there wasn't enough full-time work has fallen drastically. Employers are paying more as well. On an annual basis, median wage growth is 3.4% higher for full-time workers. And employees know just how easy it is to get a new job. The number of people voluntarily quitting their current job is above pre-pandemic levels. Perhaps the one data point that sums it up the best. In March, employers reported 8.1 million open jobs, a record high. When businesses do not have enough employees, they're forced to turn down jobs and reduce the number of hours that they are open. In the U.S. Chamber's most recent commercial construction survey, 85% of contractors reported difficulty finding workers. And of those, 34% reported having to turn down work. News outlets across the country reporting some restaurants and stores are only able to partially reopen because of the worker shortage. All of this slows down the economy. Indeed, local chambers of commerce are twice as likely to say that a lack of workers is holding back the economy as they are to say that COVID is holding it back. While the pandemic had a big impact on the labor market, the shortage of workers isn't a new problem. Back in October of 2019, we had more open jobs than unemployed individuals. Keeping our economy growing requires that we fill these jobs. We need to remove barriers that prevent people from entering the workforce, get individuals the skills that they need for the jobs that are open, and enact a sensible immigration policy. You know, from 1950 to 2000, a growing labor force, driven in part by baby boomers and women entering the workforce, helped give the United States the strongest economy in the world, lifting millions of Americans into the middle class and beyond. If business and government work together to grow our workforce, we can once again build a vibrant, prosperous nation where truly anything is possible.
Hello, I'm Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to Workforce, a call to action. You all just heard and saw the data. It's a crisis out there for employers across this nation. The bad news is that there's no single silver bullet solution that will solve this problem. The good news is there are lots of things that we can do that will make a difference. Today, we're going to spend an hour digging into some of those issues and cover as many of them as we can, things that employers can do and that policymakers at the federal and state level can do. So buckle up. We got a lot to cover in 1 hour, and let's jump right in and get started. I am honored to be joined for our first panel of discussion today by Linda Smith, the Director of Early Childhood Initiatives at the Bipartisan Policy Center. We know that for working parents, access to affordable childcare is a key ingredient to be able to enter or return to the workforce. Linda happens to be an expert on childcare issues, and she's going to share with us some of the things that can be done. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Neil, for having me. I really appreciate this. And I'd like to start by thanking you and the Chamber of Commerce for the support you've given childcare over the last year and a half since COVID started, because the Chamber's engagement has been critical to getting us the help we need in childcare. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your leadership. So we know that access to affordable childcare was an issue pre-pandemic. It's been exacerbated by the pandemic, closures in in-person schooling, childcare centers that have closed, a lack of available workers for childcare centers that are open. And we've seen government acting. So the federal government's already provided some resources. Arizona, Oklahoma have both announced use of federal resources to help returning parents afford childcare. Give us a quick snapshot. What can be done right now to help in the immediate situation? And what should we be thinking about more medium and long term to help parents get back into the workforce?
Well, yes, and I want to say that Congress and the federal government has put a lot of money out there for childcare in the last several months, upwards of $50 billion. And I think, so the states have the money to do what needs to be done here, or at least to help in that regard. What we've had a long-term and a short-term problem with childcare in this country. The childcare business model is unstable, as many have come to understand because of COVID. So that said, that's that piece. We're looking at help with the COVID money, and then also long term. How can we use the COVID money to help us stabilize this industry and then build off of what we learned from this? The second piece is there was quite a bit of money added in the last 6 months or so, close to $25 billion to help parents afford childcare. So if parents are having trouble getting back to work, the state does have the resources to help with this. So I would stress that. The other thing I think in the short term, I think that's very important, and this is where businesses can make a difference with childcare in your state. If you are having trouble getting childcare, or childcare is having an issue up and running, there is a significant amount of money to the tune of almost $25 billion to help with this. So there's money out there that can be used to incentivize workers coming back to work in childcare. Can be used for bonuses, back pay, all of those types of things. And it can help stabilize the business model for the short term and hopefully give us something to build off of in the next few years. So there are resources. I would encourage businesses who are concerned about the childcare as a barrier to voice their opinions to their state leadership, because the money is there and it should be spent to help get this economy back where it needs to be.
Well, Linda, we only had a few minutes, but I'm glad you're able to deliver good news. So often when we're talking about a problem, it's, gosh, we hope Congress can provide the money and we don't know, will it happen, won't it happen? Here, the money's there. Now it just needs to be deployed. It's setting in state coffers. There are things that we can do. Let me give you 15 seconds. Are there encouraging signs that you're seeing in your conversations with state leaders?
Yes, I think they're being extremely creative out there, and they are trying to listen to their constituencies across the states. So I think, again, it's a twofer for us. We need to recruit back our childcare workforce, and the higher qualified people, the better, because we have challenges with children who've been under stress for the better part of a year. So we need to recruit back the workforce, and we do need to support these parents. So we've got two things with some real solutions out there, and it's up to businesses and people in this country to articulate those things to the leadership in the state.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. For those tuning in, you saw the call to action at the bottom of your screen. Text to that number. We can help you. Let your governors and state elected leaders know what they can do to help address this crisis. Linda, thanks so much for joining us. I'd now like to turn this over to my colleague, Carolyn Cawley, the president of the U.S. Chamber Foundation. Carolyn?
Well, thanks, Neil, and hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Cawley, and I'm president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. As we've heard from Neil and read in the news every day, we've got a big people jobs gap. And the question we're here to talk about in this segment is whether ex-offenders can help fill that gap. Employers are beginning to think so, and we're seeing a lot of questions about, where do I start? What do I need to know? There's a lot of uncertainty. There are certainly stigma issues around second chance hiring. But we're confident that we can help you walk away from this segment today with more information, more confidence, and resources to help you with an understanding of how you can become a second chance employer and help close your people jobs gap. We're here today with an expert from the Society for Human Resource Management. SHRM has been a great partner for the Chamber and Foundation, and I'm pleased to welcome Wendy Safstrom, the Executive Director of the SHRM Foundation. Thank you, Wendy, for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Wendy, I just want to start with one question. I've got a couple of statistics that I found pretty startling, which is that SHRM has estimated that 1 in 3 Americans has a criminal background. And I just found that very startling. And more so that every year, more than 600,000 American former inmates are returning to society. And they're facing incredible hurdles when it comes to gaining employment, which we know is the bedstone of building a more successful and prosperous life and thriving communities. So can you tell us quickly, what are a couple of the obstacles that they face that we might not know about? And what can employers do to help remove them?
Sure. And thanks again for having me this afternoon. So individuals with criminal records, as you mentioned, they face numerous barriers that are unique, certainly to this particular population, including the simple stigma of having a criminal record or conviction history. Often the crimes that appear on their records, if you will, are something that were committed years, if not decades ago, and people should not be penalized for mistakes made of that nature. There's also it's also difficult to access employment opportunities. It's difficult often for individuals to articulate their transition and explain large gaps on their resumes. So what we're doing at the Society for Human Resource Management is really helping HR professionals understand the benefits, the business benefits and the social benefits that are derived from hiring individuals with criminal records. Number one, second chance hiring improves efforts to create and develop an equitable and an inclusive and a diverse workforce and a diverse workplace, really to build and realize the building blocks of diverse and inclusive workplaces, includes individuals who have different abilities, different ages, educational levels, socioeconomic levels, and that includes people with criminal records. Often incidents, and I mentioned this just previously, that lead to criminal records have no impact on a person's ability, quality, or desire to work. And that's yet another hurdle that individuals work through as they address the stigma of hiring people with a criminal record. Inclusive hiring is a really powerful way to break the cycle of poverty in many communities, and providing those equitable opportunities by employers helps individuals and families strengthen their financial health and give back to their communities. And those improvements translate to a better economy, boosting the business climate for all companies. And as HR professionals, we're in the business of managing and developing an organization's most valuable and competitive resource, which is its people. And second chance hiring is a critical priority for the foundation.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. In the remaining minute that we have to go, we've got thousands of employers and businesses of all sizes and chambers watching today, really eager to take action. What are 3 things they can do right now today to learn more and become more comfortable and confident in pursuing second chance employership?
We encourage you to go directly to our website to get started. That will help you start a really intentional hiring plan within your place of business. Gettingtalentbacktowork.org. There is a pledge that employers as individuals or companies can commit to taking. And there you'll find an entire suite of resources that really starts with a self-assessment in terms of workforce readiness or readiness to hire individuals with a criminal record from your company's perspective, all the way through developing strategies linked to the entirety of an employment life cycle for an individual, and certainly in this instance, individuals with a criminal record.
Oh, Wendy, thank you so much for sharing all that information and helping us provide a clear path to action. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Wendy. Staying with the theme of removing barriers, I'm pleased to welcome Chandler Morse, the head of North American Public Policy at Workday. Chandler, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Well, I think one of the challenges of live events, even in this pandemic age, is technical difficulties. And I'm told that Chandler is having some difficulties getting reconnected. We lost him there for a moment. Hopefully we'll get him back in the program. But let me just share with you what Chandler hoped to share with the audience. We know that connecting someone with a job is about making a match. It's an employer who's looking for a particular type of person with the skill sets that they need for the job, and finding the person who has that skill set. And so when there's a breakdown in communications, employers not adequately describing the jobs and the skills that they're looking for in a new employee, and when employees don't describe their skills in a way that employers understand, you get friction in the system. And that friction in the system makes it hard for people to find jobs that they're qualified for, and for employers to find qualified workers. At Workday and at other, they're working on eliminating this friction and helping make sure that people understand the steps that can be taken from the employer standpoint to advertise your job the right way. Combined with better data from state and federal governments, we can do a much better job of connecting people to the jobs that they're qualified for, and connecting employers with the jobs that they have open. So for all of you who registered today, we're going to share with you the information that Chandler was going to share so that you have that at your fingertips. And you know what you can do as an employer to help make sure that you're advertising jobs in a way that's going to reach the widest possible audience of qualified applicants. So stay tuned and look ahead for that. I'm now pleased to continue in the program to turn to my colleague, Cheryl Oldham, who heads up workforce and education issues, who's going to help talk about how we can address the next barrier, making sure that we get people the skills they need to fill open jobs. Cheryl?
Thank you, Neil. I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky, Jacqueline Coleman, and President and CEO of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, Ashley Watts, to discuss employer-led workforce training. And I want to just get right into it. So Kentucky was an early adopter of talent pipeline management. Ashley, how was this different than how the state's workforce development system worked previously? And why was your and the Chamber's leadership so critical?
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for having me. I think it was critical because business employers now have a seat at the table. They have stake in the game. Through our public-private partnership, we work hand in hand with state government, thanks to Lieutenant Governor Coleman, on the workforce solutions that are employer-driven, that are really looking to train, upskill, educate in the jobs that Kentucky knows that we need. Before we created this partnership, Kentucky, probably like many other states, spent about $1.2 billion, and that's a conservative number, on workforce training programs that really didn't have much input from employers and what they needed. So now with our TPM program, we have over 20 industry collaboratives all across Kentucky working together to ensure that we have the workforce to meet the demands of our key industries. And this provides businesses the workforce they need and our citizens a path onto a career with true potential. One thing I do want to note, it also provides consistency when it comes to workforce. Chambers are staples in every single state, and we luckily don't get voted in or out of office. And so there's consistency when it comes to us running these kind of programs. And one thing we're very thankful for, and thankful for Lieutenant Governor Coleman and Governor Andy Beshear, is that this program actually was started in a previous administration with a governor of a different party. And so I think it's a great role for chambers to have and really work on both sides of the aisle with the governors across the country to make sure we have the workforce that we need.
Thank you for that, Ashley. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for being here. How has the state partnered with the chamber and the business community all across Kentucky, as Ashley referenced, in this work? And why is it so important in your mind that this is a public-private approach?
Well, so thank you so much for having me today. And let me begin by saying the future of Kentucky's economy and America's economy is in our classrooms today. The first and best thing that we can do to build a stronger economy and a stronger workforce is to make sure that our schools are adequately and equitably funded, and that every American, every Kentuckian has access to high quality job training. Next, we have to recognize that workforce development doesn't begin after high school. really, it begins in childcare and early childhood education. And those are workforce issues for women and families today. But it also helps us to ensure that every child has the access that they need to make a stronger workforce in the future. So this is why Kentucky is focused on building a cradle to career public education system and job training system, because we want to produce Kentucky's next generation of leaders. And that requires us to use every resource at our disposal to ensure that no student falls through the gaps, especially those gaps at key transitional points in their educational journey, namely the one between high school and post-secondary education, because that is when Kentuckians will develop expertise in their future career field. So our partnership with the Chamber and the entire business community allows us to hear from employers directly and make certain that Kentucky students are receiving the in-demand training that they need to prepare for and to fill those jobs of the future. And so I'll give you an example. In Eastern Kentucky, our TPM Healthcare Collaborative worked to bring in a $2.5 million grant to support workers upskilling and to receive wraparound services that are so needed in that area. And we would not have been able to secure this funding without the collaboration between our government and our business leaders. And this partnership provided us with the insight into unfilled nursing positions, and it helped us to create a pipeline in the growing field of healthcare.
That is fantastic. And I'm so grateful that you wrapped all of these issues together so gracefully. We could have this conversation for an hour, but I'm going to skip right to how are you all thinking about this influx of federal financial support through the American Rescue Plan? And is workforce training a priority?
Lieutenant Governor, I'll let you go, and then I'll take the end if you want me to.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I will say it again. If the goal is economic development, then intentional investments in our schools and job training systems is the foundation. Right now, we know that in order to keep our pace in the COVID-19 recovery, that workforce training is essential, and it will most certainly be one of our top priorities. The COVID-19 pandemic created this whole new set of challenges that none of us had ever experienced before, but it also exacerbated old ones. It really shone a light on the digital divide, which is an economic development issue and an education issue. Food insecurity that so many of our families face, disparities that existed in our healthcare system, and the challenge that so many women have when childcare or early childhood education is not available. And so what we plan to do is take those ARPA funding dollars and put them behind our efforts to create an economy that works for every single Kentuckian, learning from not just the new issues that arose during COVID, but the ones that have been hiding in plain sight. So as we do this with the TPM approach, we want to listen to our employers' voice and utilize their insight to train and educate Kentuckians for what our economy needs, because that is ultimately what's best for everyone. The demands of our economy have changed drastically over the last year, which requires a very strategic alignment between our business and our government to make sure that our transition out of this COVID-19 pandemic is seamless and efficient and as smooth for employers and families as it can be. So with that ARPA money, we'll be able to do that more effectively.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to thank both of you. I'm sorry that this was so short, but thank you both so much for being here, Lieutenant Governor and Ashley Watts. So appreciate your time. Let's now hear a business perspective from Darren Hawkins, the CEO of Yellow, who understands the importance of investing in skills and training.
During the past year, Americans have become more aware than ever of the importance of our nation's supply chain. And I have never been more proud of our truck drivers who have been on the front lines serving communities coast to coast during the pandemic. As the economic recovery gains steam, a new challenge for the supply chain has emerged, and it is a shortage of qualified professional truck drivers. Congress can help by removing unnecessary barriers to become a professional truck driver. including supporting bipartisan legislation to offer employment and training that will lead to a living wage career in the trucking industry with health care and retirement benefits. This will enable our industry to reach young Americans across the country and in diverse communities hard hit by pandemic-related unemployment. Let's work together to protect our nation's supply chain and keep America rolling down the highway to economic prosperity.
Well, thank you, Darren. I promised at the top of this program that we were going to pack a whole lot into an hour, and we're certainly delivering on that promise. The third in our three-part segment here is accessing the global talent pool. And I'm pleased today to be joined by Michael Bellman, the President and CEO of the Association of Builders and Contractors, and by Susan Bittersmith, the Executive Director of the Southwest Cable Communications Association. We know that legal immigration plays a key aspect in our workforce and in our overall economic growth. And it's going to be part of the solution of addressing the current workforce shortage and reaching our economy's true potential over the long term. So Michael, Susan, thank you so much for joining us today. We again only have a few minutes before Secretary Raimondo joins us. So I want to ask you both the same question. For your respective industries, and they're very different industries, how is it that you see that accessing the global talent pool can both help address the workforce shortage issues that your members face today, but also can add to long-term growth and prosperity? So, Michael, I'll let you you lead us off here.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. In our industry, the construction industry, we right now, this year, need 430,000 workers. Over the next couple of years, by 2023, we're going to need probably another 1 million. 2 points I would like to make. Temporary protected status. We have a number of people in our industry that are on TPS. Our member employers would love to sponsor those people to a permanent status, legal status here in the United States. We'd like to take care of that. Also, we need a merit-based, market-based, rule of law worker visa system that provides the necessary opportunities for people that want to work in the United States, as well as for our employers to take those trained individuals that have spent 3 years in their companies with the opportunity to sponsor them to a pathway to citizenship, a legal form of status, something more permanent that will be of value to our industry.
Well, Susan, you're in telecommunications and technology. That's what your members do. How about in your industry? What's the story there?
Well, indeed, telecommunications is not decreasing in demand across the country. If anything, we are increasing, and we have many employers that are needing employees across the country. We need workers from the high-tech arena. We need workers in customer service. We need workers in in-house technical expertise. So really, federally, there are many things that could be done to help us fill those needed positions, starting with the expanding the annual quota of H-1B visas for high-tech workers. That would be a huge step in making sure we can fill the need and demand for increased connectivity across the country. Now, in addition to allowing international students who graduate from the U.S., we have great engineering and tech programs here, but allowing them to stay here to fill those needed positions in my industry. Beyond that, expanding opportunities for entrepreneurs to obtain permits to reside in the U.S. The cable industry was founded upon entrepreneurs that did exactly that. Our beginnings are from folks who came to this country with a little bit of money in their pocket and now have become the giants of the technology industry. Just quickly on the state side, there are some things that could help us continue to maintain what we need to have to do, which is, in fact, having the opportunity for additional training programs that could be provided. Arizona has just offered the opportunity for baccalaureate degrees in some very limited arenas to be done by the community college, which is a much more cost-effective and efficient way of getting those degree students out and into the workforce. And of course, finally, encouraging people to return to the workforce. Many states are doing this. Our state has done that as well, too, and allowing financial incentives to make sure we have workers who are already trained there and ready to go and sitting in those chairs.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Michael. You've given us concrete actions that Washington can take today to help solve this problem. And if, for those of you tuning in, if you agree with those solutions, if you want to see Washington take action, you can text visas to 52866, and it'll connect you to your lawmakers so that you can demand that they help solve this workforce shortage. So Michael, Susan, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing your perspectives. I'm hopeful that we're going to make a difference here and get some real relief for workers and businesses across this country. Now I'm honored to welcome the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's President and CEO, Suzanne Clark, and United States Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, for our keynote conversation. Suzanne?
I can't hear her. This is a problem.
Leading the Commerce Department, Secretary Raimondo has made a priority out of all of these issues. We know she's focused on a simple but vital mission to spur good-paying jobs, empower entrepreneurs to innovate and grow, and help American workers and businesses compete. Building a qualified workforce is certainly central to that effort, and she brings a really important perspective to this issue. As the governor of Rhode Island, she instituted employer-led workforce solutions like the ones we've been talking about today. Before entering public service, she was a job creator herself, starting and running her own venture capital firm. She's someone who truly understands this issue. And as secretary, she has already been a great partner to the U.S. Chamber and the American business community. We've collaborated with her closely on another national priority, infrastructure, and we're excited to see how she continues her efforts to focus the Commerce Department on solving our nation's most pressing economic issues like workforce. Secretary Raimondo, thank you so much for joining us today. As we mentioned, you have had a long reputation of someone who believes strongly in the role of business to address our workforce challenges. Tell us more about your experience with that, both as governor and now as Commerce Secretary.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's great to be with you, and thank you for having me on such an important topic. Just today, in fact, I had a small meeting with maybe 10 or so CEOs, and I asked each of them what their greatest challenges were, and several put workforce in the top 3 of the challenges that they have. So I'm really pleased to see that you're leading in this. It is something, as you say, that I have worked on for a long time. And most recently, when I was the governor of Rhode Island leading during COVID, we launched an effort called Back to Work Rhode Island, which was a highly successful public-private partnership in which we got 7,000 Rhode Islanders back to work who had been put out of work by COVID by working in partnership with businesses and training these individuals for the jobs that were available. And so I'm a believer in this. It's good for business, it's good for workers, it's good for American competitiveness.
Well, as you well know, and you and I've talked about this, these workforce challenges certainly existed before the pandemic, but even got worse, right, in the last year. Question for you is, where do you think the system has failed over the years?
That's an excellent question. I think there's plenty of blame to go around to all of us, and there are a number of places the system has failed. I would highlight a few. First of all, I think we have underemphasized and in some cases abandoned high school technical training, what used to be called voc tech. We have de-emphasized it, and that is unfortunate because not everybody's cut out for college, and we have a huge opportunity in high schools, or maybe high school plus 6 months, to train folks for jobs that exist. Secondly, and relatedly, we've just overemphasized four-year college for everybody. Now, the fact of the matter is, nearly half of young people who start college drop out, which means it's the worst of both worlds. They have no degree, less ability to get a job, and a ton of debt. And so by having a system which funnels everybody in that direction, I think we've done a lot of people a disservice. And then finally, I think as it relates to government funded job training, historically, they've just been very supply focused, which is to say they begin with the folks that are out of work instead of beginning with the demand of employers. And again, the whole system has been there hasn't been enough integration between companies and their demand and the actual training that the government provides. So as a result, there've been, frankly, a lot of wasted money, public money, on not that effective program. So it's an opportunity. It's all an opportunity now to fix it. But I think those are a few things that I would call on as deficiencies in our systems.
You know, Madam Secretary, we couldn't agree more. And that you absolutely identified some of the same things we're hearing from CEOs and from state and local chambers across the country. And this kind of disconnect around how people start to figure out and understand the skills they might need for the jobs that are available is something we're hoping to lean into and help solve. What do you think that could look like as people are making training and education choices to identify a career?
So let me say this. I think both sides of the equation have to change the way they do things and be willing to come together in a partnership from day one. So I think the right way to do highly effective, cost-efficient job training is, before you spend any money, before you do anything, to have businesses in a certain sector, because I do think doing this sector-based is important. Businesses sitting down with, training partners and really doing the micro work of figuring out what are their hiring demands and what are the skills required for those hiring demands. And then having the training be truly tailored, which means it has to be flexible. And you're going to have to call upon a number of different training partners, maybe high schools, maybe nonprofits, maybe community colleges, maybe, in some cases, the companies have their own training initiatives. But it has to be dynamic and really constant engagement between the public and the private sector. The other thing, and I would challenge businesses in this regard, businesses need to change the way they hire. So it is still the case that many companies are searching for people with a 4-year college degree to do a job that doesn't necessarily require a 4-year college degree. And as a result, they're frustrated, justifiably, that they have a lot of spots open and they can't find people to fill the spots. But I think in many ways, if they would say, okay, we don't really need a 4-year college degree. What we really need is someone capable of doing these tasks with these skills, then, and they'd be willing to look at people with those competencies and skills, even if they don't have a college degree, then I think the public sector could get to work fulfilling companies' needs more effectively and efficiently.
You just made a really interesting point about the role employers have to take, right? And I think when you were governor, our teams worked really well together in the talent pipeline management project that we've described in this program. And you just heard the leaders from Kentucky talk about how they've also adopted it statewide. What's your advice for us in getting other states to adopt a statewide talent pipeline project like that?
I would say a few things. I would talk to the governor, I think, or maybe a mayor of a big city. My experience is that this is easy to say, right? It's easy to write down what has to happen, but requires a leader with focus and passion to move the whole system towards a particular goal. So, in my case, as the governor, I was able to say, this is our goal. And then I called the CEOs and I invited them into the office, and I was able to align the whole public system, our community college, our 4-year college, our high schools, our Governor's Workforce Development Board, the grants that we put out for the Department of Labor to nonprofits. You need a leader who's going to own it call for accountability, and drive the whole system to work in concert. So I think that that mostly that's a governor, though again it could be a mayor. But I think in this regard, since you're challenging status quo, disrupting traditional systems, you do need a leader who's willing to make it happen.
Well, speaking of leaders and turning to the federal level, the Commerce Department, as you well know, has not traditionally been the workforce agency. And yet I think you're changing that in a way as you see how tied workforce has been to economic development. So can you tell us about how you're changing that work?
Yes, it's one of the reasons I took the job. In fact, when I was interviewing with the then president-elect, this is something I talked to him about and said that, this is a lot of the reason I want to do this job. Because if you don't have commerce and businesses, small and large, at the table from day one and every day with the Department of Labor and Department of Education doing the work, it just won't be successful. It has to begin with the demand, and you really do need buy-in from the business community. Also, I think that we have a big opportunity in America, nationwide, to massively increase the number of apprenticeships. And President Biden, in his jobs plan, calls for funding to add between 1 million and 2 million apprenticeships. Apprenticeships work. Again, we've once upon a time, we invested more in vocational training in high schools. We invested more in apprenticeships. We need to get back to that. And it's not just for the building trades, although that's important. We need digital apprenticeships, cybersecurity apprenticeships, software engineering apprenticeships, accounting apprenticeships, quality assurance apprenticeships. If you think about all of the jobs in the digital backbone, they all could lend themselves to an apprenticeship type model, but it's essential to have business at the table. Paying some, not full freight, obviously, but some amount of salary so people can earn while they learn. And so anyway, bottom line is Secretary Walsh is terrific. He's a great partner in this. The president is focused on this, and business needs to lean in. But if we do, when we do, I think this is so critical to American competitiveness, to American wage growth, and frankly, to equity. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. When we did this in Rhode Island during COVID, we said of the 7,000, we were committing ourselves that more than half would be women and more than 25% would be people of color. And we also said we wanted to make sure we had, formerly incarcerated people could have a chance, people in recovery could have a chance, because often those are the folks that are hardest to employ, and they're not going to get a job unless they have some tangible skill. And I'm proud to say we did that. More than a third of back to work were people of color. I think 60+% were women. So in this moment, when we're all focused on equity and diversity, these job training initiatives and apprenticeships can really move the needle.
There's so much more I want to ask you. I think you're just so smart and experienced on this crucial issue. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Let me ask you one last question, which is, I think you and I share a sense of the urgency of this for all of the reasons that you just described. And, the Chamber has said we need an Operation Warp Speed for this, for jobs. What advice do you have to the state and local chambers across the country listening today, to the large and small business leaders across the country that are listening today? How do we instill this sense of urgency in more people?
Look, we have to do it. Again, I just was with somebody, he runs a big company, and he said he right now is holding 1,000 open spots because he cannot find people to take those jobs. And also, we have tens of millions of Americans living in poverty because they don't make enough, because they don't have the skills to get a higher paying job. So let's do it. I'm committed to it. The other thing you could think about it, look at the tech. There's so much discussion about competition, competing with China, leaning into tech. That all revolves around talent. We aren't going to compete successfully if we don't have talent in science and technology. And not all of that is PhDs. A lot of that can be done with these sector-focused job training programs. So as far as I'm concerned, no matter how you slice it, if you care about equity, if you care about raising wages, if you care about American competitiveness, this is at the heart of it. And we have a moment right now to do it differently than has ever been done before, and to really help businesses and help employees at the same time.
I could not have said it better. You can absolutely count on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation to be partners in this effort. And we really appreciate your passion, your commitment, and your expertise to this topic. So thank you so much, Secretary Raimondo.
Thank you, Suzanne. We have to get together in person soon.
Looking forward to it. So that was a great session with the Secretary, and I want to say thank you to her and to all of the terrific speakers who have joined us today. This forum has certainly given us a lot to think about, and more importantly, a lot to act on. As you take these conversations back to your companies, your organizations, and communities, I hope you'll carry 3 key things with you. First, what we just discussed, and that is a sense of urgency. The data show that the worker shortage is holding back job creators across the country, and the accounts that I hear from our members every day in every size of company in all industries bear this out. We do not have enough nurses and doctors to care for the sick. We do not have enough construction workers to rebuild our country, truck drivers to keep commerce moving, tech workers who can get the visas they need to help American companies innovate, or small business, restaurant, and retail workers to help resume life and business as we knew it before the pandemic. And that's just naming a few of the industries and sectors impacted by the worker shortage. Today, we stand on the cusp of a great economic resurgence and a bright new era of innovation and growth to fuel our long-term competitiveness. Realizing this potential requires us to solve this challenge now and for the future. Second, I hope you leave today with real confidence that together we can solve this. We've got this. There are innovative employer-led solutions to arm workers with the skills they need to fill the jobs of today and compete for the jobs of tomorrow. Programs like Talent Pipeline Management work, and they must be scaled and expanded. Meaningful policy proposals from second chance hiring to expanded access to childcare can help remove barriers that are keeping too many Americans on the sidelines. The world's best and brightest who want to pour their talent and energy into our economy should have every opportunity to do so, which is why the Chamber will continue to lead the charge for doubling employment-based immigration, including H-1B and H-2B visas. Look, no single policy or idea will fix this, but if we address these challenges holistically, if we harness the power of employer-led solutions and work with our public sector partners, we will get the job done. And you can play a role, whether it's writing a letter, sending an email, or making a call to your elected officials urging legislative action. You can directly lobby your members of Congress or state leaders, or implement or support some of the ideas and initiatives discussed today in your own communities. Finally, I hope you leave here inspired about this work. I know we presented a lot of data, statistics, and policy in 1 hour. When you do the kind of work we do, it's important to focus on the facts and the figures. But even so, we never forget what it's really about. It's about people. 4 of the most special, precious words many people will ever hear in their lives are, "You got the job." For me personally, when I owned a small business, creating 20-some jobs and filling them with outstanding team members was among my proudest accomplishments, because we know what a job means to an individual and a family. It means a steady paycheck, better health outcomes, and financial security. It means dignity, self-determination, accomplishment, and hope. We know what a job means to our society. When people give the best of themselves to the dignity of work, to a job well done, they become part of an ecosystem of growth, opportunity, and advancement that can lift entire communities, improve lives, and change our world. And we know what a job means to our nation's future. This country has been blessed with many competitive advantages. Above all of them, the talent and energy and ingenuity of our people. When you lead the world in talent, you lead the world in solutions. With a highly skilled workforce, there's nothing that business cannot achieve and solve, and nothing our nation cannot do. That's the essence of this work, and that's why we must approach it with urgency, action, and great hope for our future. Thanks all of you for your time today. We look forward to working with all of you to solve this problem and seize this opportunity.